What was once a distant memory is now a reality. U.S. inflation rates are at a level not seen since the early 1980s. In a poll released Friday, 40% of Americans listed inflation as one of their top priorities for the government to address in the coming year. But the U.S. is not alone. Rates are climbing globally, and in Britain, inflation has reached 9.1%. Roxana Saberi has been talking with Londoners who are struggling with soaring prices.
Deep fried and deeply loved.
Feels like a treat when I have it.
What's long been Britain's national dish is now taking a battering.
Perfect storm of cost rises. It's a difficult one to manage.
At Kennedy's fish and chip shop in London, Richard Pickering says fallout from Brexit, the pandemic, and now the war in Ukraine have cranked costs up 25 to 30%. From the cod to the flour for the fish, the potatoes, even the sunflower oil for frying.
Most of it comes from either the Russian steppes or Ukraine, and that supply is just not available at the moment.
The industry says the price pressure has already forced dozens of the UK's roughly 10,000 fish and chip shops to shut down, and warns thousands more are at risk. Customers here tell us they notice the effects of inflation on their plates and beyond.
Generally speaking, the price of meals has gone up. You probably noticed that as well, the cost.
I would say I've turned the heating off, and I'm cold sometimes, so I put a blanket round or a cardigan on rather than put the heating on. And I'm not that hard up.
UK's inflation rate has spiked to over 9% for the first time in 4 decades. That's even higher than Americans are seeing.
So basically, inflation isn't just a U.S. thing.
It is absolutely not a U.S. thing.
Stephanie Flanders is a Bloomberg economist and journalist.
In the UK, we are so dependent on these imports from the rest of the world, be it energy, be it food, and it's precisely those things that are going up in price.
Why should Americans care? Should they care?
You know, it can have ripple effects in the US. It can add to a volatile global environment.
What do we want? Hey, justice!
Wages in the UK have lagged behind. Protesters have called on the government for more help.
How are we expected to put food on the table, to have a shelter over our heads?
And some food banks are struggling to stay stocked. Londoners like Charles Dowson are turning to their own green thumbs. He says he saves at least $120 a month eating vegetables he grows on this plot, which he rents from his neighborhood council.
How does the price of these compare to what you'd find in the store?
These are cheaper, they taste better.
As food prices have surged, so has demand for spots like this across the country. The average waiting list is several years long.
People are starting to realise how important being able to grow their own food is, and they can reduce their family budget by doing so. It all adds up, and it's a big help.
Back at Kennedy's, Pickering hopes Britain's fish and chip shops weather this storm.
It survived and thrived in 2 world wars. It's going to be difficult, and there will be some casualties.
Eventually, he says, the crowds will come back for more. For CBS Saturday Morning, Roxana Saberi, London.
Dozens of fish and chip shops. That just seems shocking to me.
And it's so difficult because how much more can you raise prices on the menus for those customers before they turn away to it? It is a true ripple effect that you're seeing.
Yeah. The only silver lining is that the dollar is pretty well juxtaposed against the euro, but I'll be there next week and I'm just bracing myself for those added costs.
I'm curious to hear from you because it's so different when you actually see the bill. We've all said it, like you go to the grocery store and then you're like, what? So once you do that, to see what those are like.